Welcome, everyone. We gather for this third week with seeds and seedlings, and we've all been steeping in this energy. And for most of us right now, it's in time and space, April, the third week of April. So everything is beginning to bloom. Whether we can fully see it or not, it's awakening and its presence is making itself known. So that energy definitely helps us as we steep ourselves in kind of the mystery, the magic, and the forward momentum of seeds and seedlings. So I'm really glad that we're all here together, spending time with this wonderful topic that's always relevant, but we get to spend extra awareness with it right now. So I have a few slides to help us sink a little deeper into our time with seedlings. So I will share my screen. All right. I will begin by reading Dr. Pong's 8 verses, as we often do. Let's find our comfortable meditation and Qigong posture, feeling the sits bones, the hips, the lower body, relaxing and sinking. The spine straightens, the chin tucks as head touches sky, feet stand on earth. Body relaxes and the mind expands. Be respectful and quiet. Mind is clear and appearance is humble. No distracting thoughts. Mind expands into infinite space. Feel the mind shining into the body deeply and inwardly. Entire body is harmonized with qi. Harmonized with qi. Here we have Megan's garden with baby tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, and they're all nestled into the soil and protected with mulch, just ready to grow and eventually fruit. So we can just receive the beauty of this garden bed. And this is also from Megan's beautiful garden, and we will get to listen to another quintessential sound of spring, and that is the song of baby birds. I love that. As our little seedlings grow, the birds come around. I've noticed we don't have a lot in bloom yet, but we've been seeing a bunch of birds, and they're like, okay, where is it? And last year we had a lot of American goldfinches. We grew a bunch of basil last year, and they would visit the basil every day. And there were only about two, but this year there's a flock of about 10 that have been kind of circling around where we had the basil last year. And I'm thinking, oh, those goldfinches must have invited their friends because we've been seeing quite a lot of goldfinches. So the birds are such a beautiful companion as we work with our seedlings. There we go. So the last 2 weeks, the wild lady slipper orchid has come up in our sharing. And in our first week with seedlings, Lillian mentioned that the seedling can take 7 years in the woods to germinate. So it can stay nestled in the earth, waiting for its environment, the fungi, to create that perfect symbiotic relationship for the wild lady slipper to germinate and then emerge from the forest floor. And many of us resonate with that timing, that right timing, that slowness, the patience, really taking one's time to merge and transform as makes sense with one's environment. And I thought, given the wild lady slipper's presence in our sharing, it would be wonderful to see an image of it. So here it is coming up from the forest floor. We can just connect to the wisdom and the patience and the right timing of this beautiful plant. Thank you to the wild lady slipper. And this we'll recognize from our prior weeks as well. It's Craig's Spring Despacho and the Seeds of Intention that have been supporting us this month. And I want to mention this for next week. During next week's final official session on seeds, Craig will build a despacho in response to what is happening during our real-time meditation and as an energetic culmination of this month's theme of seeds, seedlings, and new beginnings. And during the ceremony, seeds will have intentions blown into them, and they'll get placed on the despacho that Craig is making in that session. And in preparation for the ceremony, if you're so moved, you can find a leaf and perhaps some little seeds that are important to you, or something comparable like tiny stones or little bits of wood, something that can nestle in the leaf during our session. And then when we have our little bits of nature, seeds, shavings of wood, whatever resonates in that moment, together we'll blow our intentions into the seeds and into the despacho that Craig is creating. And then we'll place our seeds on the leaf that we brought with us, or we'll imagine it if we don't bring physical leaves. We can always bring leaves and seeds in our mind's eye. Um, and then to finish the despacho, despachos are decorated with flowers, incense, or candy. And the despacho is a prayer, an offering, a gift honoring the guardians of Anye, sacred relationship. And once the despacho is complete, we can bury it, we can burn it, or we can set it free into the flowing waters. And there, our intentions will either dissolve into the earth, burn into the atmosphere, or disperse into the water, whatever feels right in that moment. And again, if you don't have seeds or a leaf or something comparable, that is no problem at all. We will be connecting with Craig as he works with the elements of the despacho and the seeds, and he can hold the seeds up and we can all put our intentions into them together. So whether you have a physical item or not, it doesn't matter. We can all participate fully. I don't know if Robin and Craig are here yet, but if you guys are, and if you have anything you'd like to add, Craig, please feel free. Let me see if I can see.
Not here yet, but that's okay. I
Okay.
mean, in physical Zoom form, at least.
Yeah, I knew they weren't when I started, but you never know if people
I
come
know,
in.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we can ask them later if there's anything else. But in the meantime, this will give us enough information for next week, and we will also put this information in these invitations in the reminder for next week in case you forget. So you do not have to remember what I just said. Yeah, so that's where I will leave the beautiful despacho ceremony for next week. And now I will pass the presentation over to Alex. Also,
Yeah, so as I mentioned just before we started, I brought a book for show and tell today. It's called The Metamorphosis of Plants, and it's by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who was a highly influential philosopher, poet, statesman, natural scientist in his day, a true Renaissance man or polymath, if you will. He's perhaps best known for his literary success as a poet and playwright and novelist. Classics like The Sorrows of Young Werther and Faust come to mind. But he was also influential in the natural sciences. So his Metamorphosis of Plants, which I have here, the theory of color, which is sort of a, I would say competing, but he would probably say more complementary theory to Newton's own theory of color, which is based more on prisms and sort of wavelengths of light and so on. He offers a different take on the theory of color. So anyway, yeah, cool guy. I actually studied in college the history and philosophy of science as a philosophy major or whatever, and also I minored in mathematics. So I have quite a lot of, I don't know, I guess background in this, and I think about it all the time still, even though that was years ago. Um, Goethe advocated for a different kind of natural science than what we ended up with, really. At the time, it was really an invitation to go down another path. He advocated for a qualitative approach, which he called a delicate empiricism. This was sort of opposed to just the purely quantitative, mechanical, or mathematical approach that was dominant in the modern sciences since the time of Descartes, Isaac Newton, and so on. So he believed that mathematical sciences and qualitative sciences were two different tool sets that were each appropriate for its respective pole of material reality. So thus the mathematician and the poet stand to learn more about the nature of the world together than they do apart. Goethe said, "Number and measurement on their own, in all their baldness, destroy form and banish the spirit of the living organism." This invitation to move to a more qualitative thinking in science means that we're invited to move from linear to circular thinking, from parts to wholes, from isolation to relationships, and from analysis to synthesis. Another quote from Goethe's essay, Quality and Quantity, Two Poles of Material Existence. As human beings' relationship to the world, our actual experience is of qualities, not numbers or mathematical formulas. The latter rest upon a previous abstraction of quantities from experienced qualities. The qualitative aspect of nature therefore has primacy over the quantitative, since it, that is, the qualitative, is what is given to our immediate experience. I receive mathematics as the most sublime and useful science, so long as they are applied in their proper place, but I cannot commend them in matters which do not belong to their sphere, and in which, noble science as they are, seem to be mere nonsense, as if, forsooth, things only exist when they can be mathematically demonstrated. For example, it would be foolish not to believe in love, because it cannot be mathematically demonstrated. Mathematics cannot eliminate prejudice, prevent willfulness, or resolve partisan difference. Like dialectics, mathematics is in practice an art like rhetoric. It does not matter whether mathematics counts pennies or guineas, whether rhetoric defends what is true or what is false. However, the character of the person practicing these arts is most important. The degree to which they become perfect is the degree to which they pursue beauty and what is true. So he had many critics in his day when he released this work and others in the natural sciences. Hermann von Helmholtz, which came actually just a little bit after him, has a sort of famous critique of him saying, instead of trying to arrange the phenomena of nature under definite conceptions, i.e. mathematics, Goethe sits down to contemplate them as he would a work of art. The exquisite order and symmetry he finds gives him intense pleasure. He feels perhaps an antipathy toward mathematical dissection because he fears his pleasure will be spoilt by it. In other words, it's all a romantic idea, but ultimately this is anthropomorphic and non-scientific. So they have this sort of dismissive air about it. And Hermann von Helmholtz, to be fair, also admired many things about Goethe, but he thought that it was at best pseudoscientific what he was doing with the sciences. Okay. And Goethe was aware of these criticisms even in his own day, and he had a response to this. And so I don't know if anyone has ever really beat this response. Honestly, it's the best comeback I think I could have imagined. I just love this guy. So let me read this. I have heard myself criticized as if I were an opponent, an enemy of mathematics and quantitative science in general, which in fact no one can value more highly than I, since it achieves the gifts which have been denied me. It does not at all follow that the hunter who has killed the game must also be the cook who prepares it. One would commit a bad fallacy if one were to maintain that in order to be a good shot, one must be a good cook. Mathematicians, to me, appear to be in the same error when they maintain that one can see nothing, know nothing in the physical realm without also being a mathematician. In other words, get off your high horse. He actually believed that nature's secrets were not only available to really learned people who had like achieved a certain level of progress in mathematics. He thought that it were available to everyone. And so that's what his qualitative science hoped to bring about. And again, he's saying here, it's like, I'm not opposed to mathematical insights in science. I just think that without the qualitative, they're kind of dry and empty. Like it does not a complete understanding. So it's like the right hand to the left hand of math, right? So yeah, or I don't know if it's left and right brain. I can't remember which one is correlated to which there, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's a little introduction to that. Now, as for the book itself, which I have here, it's really awesome. It's kind of deceiving in how simple it is and how short it is. It's only 140 paragraphs or something like that, and most of them are very short. And then he has some drawings that he does to kind of demonstrate how his like central thesis is that everything with the plant is essentially the leaf, and it's the leaf you can see if you dissect a seed is already embedded in the seed. The form is already there, and as it comes out of the seed, it goes through a series of expansions and contractions to create the different parts of the plant as though it's a ladder that's ascending to heaven, and then eventually creating the seed again, which starts the whole process over. So it's really a really interesting and simple kind of formulation, but it's also really insightful, and it really gives you a intimate sense of like his methodology and how he thinks about natural sciences. So I'll just read a little bit from the introduction to this book, which is actually not, these words are not Goethe's words. They're this person, Gordon Miller, who put this together. The new version, he includes some photography to go along with some of the original drawings that Goethe did to kind of complement them and expand on them a little bit more, show with some really high resolution images, really good detail. But he's also got some really nice commentary here, so I thought I'd read a little bit of it. Because supersensible archetypes in nature are not things recognized by mainstream modern science, many have been led to reject Goethe's scientific approach as suffering too much from the romantic musings of his poetic genius. But to aim this criticism at Goethe's way of science is merely to beg the question he was posing about the limits of mainstream science. Can a mechanistic, materialistic approach that focuses only on innumerable individual surface structures meet the explanatory challenge of the living organism or the life of nature as a whole? His sense that the world we experience could never be built up from mere matter and motion, not truly known on the model of a human subject confronting a mere object, spurred him to develop his alternative approach. In contrast to conventional empiricism, Goethe advocated a delicate empiricism, which makes itself, quote, utterly identical with the object. This mode of inquiry aims to overcome subject-object dualism by endowing detailed sense experience on the outward forms of nature with the enlivening inward power of imagination, while also grounding subjective imagination in objective forms and facts. So in place of the alienation from the natural world at the center of conventional Cartesian approach, Goethe proposed a way of identification as a path to a deeper and unifying knowledge of nature. Goethe embodied his belief that science and poetry, with their corresponding conceptions of nature, are not incompatible, but actually complementary. The poet-scientist, however, has often struggled for a hearing in the modern Western world. Goethe was bewildered by many responses his essay engendered among his circle of friends and acquaintances. What was this new effort supposed to be? It seemed too scientific for poetry, but perhaps also too poetic for science. Nowhere, he complained, would anyone grant me that science and poetry can be united. People have forgotten that science has developed from poetry, and they failed to take into consideration that a swing of the pendulum might beneficially reunite the two at a higher level and to mutual advantage. So I thought that was just a really good, and he goes on. There's a lot more here I could read, but you get the idea. It's like there's this invitation there, and I think it's coming back again. There's many scientists today who are living, who have been inspired by Goethe, who are starting to reopen some of these questions and some of these exploratory paths. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. He actually mentions this a little bit here. He says that his basic proposition that all is leaf is commonly known as the foliar theory, and it has, in fact, in the words of a recent text, underpinned all work on flower development, including modern molecular genetic analysis. For example, the genetic work of distinguished biologists Enrico Cohen, Elliot Mariowitz, and others is particularly significant for providing experimental support for this guiding insight of Goethe's. And then he goes on to say that there are modern examples like the Swiss biologist Adolf Portman, believing that Goethe's image of the metamorphosis of plants is placed before our eyes the grandeur of living nature, and has followed Goethe's lead in various directions and has promoted in his spirit a new kind of science that leads to deepened experience with the realm of living form and makes nature for us a true home. Aside from Goethe's potential value for contemporary science and scientists, a rigorously empirical approach to nature that can also bring us more deeply home to the biosphere certainly seems, in the face of current environmental concerns, like an attractive alternative. I concur. So yeah, really good introduction in this little book, and then of course it's just a very short, just a very short essay with pictures, and it's really awesome actually. So just as a summary, he kind of summarizes in paragraph 73 his whole kind of concept here, which is basically we first noted an expansion from the seed of the stem leaf, from the seed to the stem leaf. Then we saw a calyx through contraction, the flower leaves through expansion, the reproductive parts through contraction. We will soon observe the greatest expansion in the fruit and the greatest concentration in the seed. So again, it goes this open close pattern, just like we practice. And it also believes in this sort of like ladder of intensification, like it grows more and more concentrated as it leads back to the seed. And then the cycle starts over again. So again, that's more circular versus linear pattern. And so I just have another quote that I wanted to share here from Goethe. It's so funny. The mathematicians did not find out the metamorphosis of plants. I achieved this discovery without the aid of mathematics, and the mathematicians have been forced to put up with it. So good. God, I love this guy the more I read him. And so he's had a lot of, influence through time. I think that his most profound influence is yet to come, perhaps in the 21st century. We can hope. I think that there's it's very ripe. The time is very ripe right now, as institutions are being questioned, as meaning and sense are kind of breaking down, as many things are kind of shifting and changing. I think we're entering a very pregnant era, and there's a lot here that Goethe has to offer this new world that we're entering. So yes, he was he inspired Charles Darwin. Darwin actually references the metamorphosis in his Origin of the Species, and has mentioned in other writings to other of his fellows at the time that he saw his work on the Origin of the Species almost as Goethe's Metamorphosis, but on a geological timescale, which I thought was interesting. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a transcendentalist here in America. Saw this philosophy as foundational to his own. Rico Cohen was mentioned already, the biologist who is sort of reading some of the same ideas, like this genetic coding that kind of you can find in any part of the plant, is sort of riffing on the same theme of the leaf. And then, of course, we have Rupert Sheldrake, who's a more modern scientist. If you guys have ever heard of Rupert Sheldrake, I really would encourage you to check out his banned TED Talk called The Science Delusion, which you can find on YouTube. So I've included a link in the presentation here, which we can share afterward. And you can also just Google The Science Delusion, Rupert Sheldrake. It's fantastic. It's probably like 15 minutes long or something. It's very short, but it's very good. And I think that's pretty much everything I had to share on the topic. Goethe also wrote a poem called The Metamorphosis of Plants that is included along in the work, right after the introduction and before the work itself begins. So I thought I would read an excerpt from that. Asleep within the seed the power lies, foreshadowed pattern, folded in the shell, root, leaf, and germ, pale and half-formed. The nub of tranquil life, kept safe and dry, swells upward, trusting the gentle dew, soaring apace from out the enfolding night. Deep in the bosom of the swelling fruit, a germ begins to burgeon here and there, as nature welds her ring of ageless power, joining another cycle to the last, flinging the chain unto the end of time, the whole reflected in each separate part. And with that, I think we'll close it out and open the floor.
Alex, would you put, I had a fun idea of how to, that is just so beautiful, number one. I've been thinking about this subject all day today, not Goethe, but the same subject. So that's the synchronicity. But could you put the slide back where it talks about the open close?
Sure, yeah, we can do
I
that.
just love to like very briefly guide us in like connecting with that because I was playing with it when the slide was up and it was
Wait, what's
fun.
it working? Okay.
It's working.
You guys can see that?
That
Okay.
one.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. If you guys want to play for a moment
Mhm.
to connect in with, I love this, Goethe's noticing the open and close of creation
Mhm.
with seeds. So, okay, briefly, I'll just invite you to close your eyes and come into your Qigong posture and notice your breath in your body. And if you like, you can come into the present moment, into your best Mingjue state. And raise up the hands into our Lachi position. And in your imagination, you can put a seed in between your hands. So we're not moving, we're just holding this seed in that place that Goethe calls that safe place in the oneness, where we all came from, where all life comes from. But that place that we all must emerge from if we wish to play in duality. So just connecting in with the oneness of that seed. And now I'm going to invite you to begin to open and imagine that seed going from seed to stem and leaves. So this is the first expansion. Expanding into stem and leaves. And you can imagine your hands really extending far outward throughout the entire universe, forming those stems and leaves. And now we'll move into the first contraction. So you can moving from the elbows, bringing your hands back together, closing, and now we are going from stem to sepals, the calyx. You don't need to know what that is. Just know that your seed, your plant is developing, contracting. And now, when you are ready, moving from the elbows, again expanding. Now we're going from those sepals to petals. Expanding, petals, petals of a flower. That slow expansion. And now, when we're ready, moving from the elbows, contracting, moving from petals, creating stamens and pistil, the middle of the flower, I think. Stamens and pistil. So contracting, creating. We're putting ourselves into that creation energy. Feel the energy between your hands. And now again, we'll expand. Expanding out. So we're moving from the stamens and pistil, which are the reproductive organs, and we're expanding, creating fruit, growing the fruit. Expanding, expanding, expanding. Vast out toward the universe. And then when we've reached that climax, now we'll go and contract again. Hands moving towards each other. We're contracting, moving from fruit to seed. And here we are, moving our deepest intentions for love and peace and healing for all beings on earth. And we're putting all of those beautiful intentions back into the seed, back into our beautiful seeds, back into the oneness, back into pure potential. And once again, coming to a pause and holding those beautiful seeds that we've created through this creation process, courtesy of Goethe. Holding those seeds. And then I'll invite you to deliver those seeds into your body by stacking your hands over the navel in whatever order feels appropriate for you today. And just breathing that energy and vitality back into your body, allowing ourselves to re-enter that beautiful cycle of life. Howla, howla. Thank you for entertaining that inspired impulse.
It's awesome.
Howla. Thanks, everyone.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Really, really, really completed it. Really, that was just very, very nice.
Yeah. And the seed feels so strong in the center after going through all of the expansions and contractions. That seed is palpable. Yeah, thank you. Mm. Mm.
So, if there's any other sharing or just anything else that came up for any of you during the presentation or throughout the week,
Mm.
love to hear it.
I have in my notebook the open close steps, and I feel like they're relevant, especially with the beautiful meditation that we just shared. So this is from the Mingjue Awakening book, and with open close, and I didn't realize how tied this was to Goethe's delicate empiricism, but it feels like the same process. We observe. So we observe the baby plant, the seed, the leaf, whatever is before us, whatever is present in our experience, we observe. And within that observation, we relax. So we soften to what's present. And then within this place of relaxed observation, we can invite ourselves to concentrate, which is exactly what the little plant does when it gathers. It contracts and concentrates into that very potent energy of growth. And then after concentrate, we go through. We have this process, we see through, we have that movement that comes within concentration. And then once we've gone through, we expand. So we open that potency, we open that concentrated vital life force that Megan mentioned in our practice. And we expand and we open out into the universe. And next, we merge. So we open, expand, merge into the universe, and then we all know what happens next. We transform, and that's the last step in the open close list. And it's exactly what Goethe's science is doing, and I find it so beautiful.
And intensification too. The
The
intensification.
intensification.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that alchemizing and then going from duality back to wholeness, back to oneness. So we have our chi entirety, our Mingjue entirety, our our oneness experience. So his delicate empiricism captures, yeah, that whole process, the whole life cycle that Megan mentioned in our meditation. So thank you. I didn't realize they were the same. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. These universal teachings are universal.
Yes. I don't know how it's surprising every time.
It is. It's so delightful. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Well, I'll just throw something in here that I'm curious about, because as far as seeds go, the later in life you get, the more you know you only can plant so many seeds before the end of the life. So I'm just, since I trust your uh, intelligence and lovely insight, especially I'm speaking to everyone, but especially to Megan and Alex and Elizabeth. So to take this metaphor to death, so there's an open and a close, but in the sense of consciousness of humans, there's no seed, no physical seed that continues like there is in plants. Plant dies and it gives a fruit of seeds, right? But humans don't do that necessarily. I mean, you can have children, but so I'm just curious what you do with the metaphor beyond life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
I was wondering the same thing earlier when we were going through the cycle. I was like, what happens at death? Because we don't turn back into that papery seed shell, but we do have energetic seeds or seeds that perhaps look like that we don't see with our five senses. But I'm really glad you raised this question because it's the same one I raised. Um, yeah.
it's also it's interesting too because Goethe he was struggling against a trend in sciences which it didn't have to develop that way, but it was the materialist versus the spiritualist, and he was very much on the spiritualist side. So he did believe that there were extra material realities that are part of our existence. And so he often would point to the inability of our sort of materialistic view of the world. Science as we currently conceive it is very materialistic and has that very materialistic view of nature. And so, yeah, he would say that it's inadequate to describe what we experience. And in fact, if you like Rupert Sheldrake video that I mentioned, if you look that up, he does a really good job of kind of deconstructing some of the myths of the materialistic science and suggesting that according to science, the universe has no consciousness, planets have no consciousness, stars have no consciousness, and so nothing material should have any consciousness, including us, which is of course ridiculous because we experience it every day. Right? And so it's a good question. What happens to our consciousness after we die? I don't know. We don't really know. There's been a lot of like near-death experiences. I've listened to many of them. A lot of them have a lot of things in common. There's some differences, but it's interesting. It does seem that it's possible that there is something after death for our consciousness, but even those who have got so to speak crossed over and come back, there's enough variation there that you kind of question it, but it's inherently a mystery. And I think that was one of the things that Goethe also, emphasized was the mystery. And the mystery is something that is part and parcel of that phenomenological or qualitative experience. So we can't separate the mystery out. He criticized mathematicians for trying to put everything under a grid that could be understood by number. But when they do that, they're thereby exclude anything that cannot be described that way. And he thought that was a huge mistake because it basically, destroys the living organism. That was his critique. But yeah, it's a really, really good and difficult question for sure.
Well, I don't have any doubt about continuation of consciousness. I'm just curious with this open and close and the transform. So, because what do you transform into? You transform into emptiness, and then you transform back into some kind of form that follows some kind of hopefully more organic instruction or blueprint that is harmonious with the nature of the universe. So the I guess it's that transform part, and then you close. You don't just stay open. Of course, in duality, you don't just stay open. I don't know. Megan, you go for it, girl.
I just always see the pauses as the death in open close. So we open and then there's a pause before you close again, right? There's always, in any change of movement, there's that still point. So I just saw the death on both ends, I guess. um, that's sort of my conceptual framework of the practice.
Mm.
Um, the only other thing I have to add is that, seeds are sort of like a physical representation of like carrying on, or, your contribution, your purpose, your legacy, and kids can look like that too. But our contribution, our seeds, our legacy it's just interwoven in literally everything we did and were in our lives. Those seeds ripple through the matrix of creation constantly and forever. So yeah, that's again how I see it. If that's
Thanks.
useful. Yeah. Does anyone else have any
What
thoughts?
what about going from energy that has forms when you die to go to formless energy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where that goes, just out there.
Reminds me of what Suan brought up and what was brought up in some of the classes last week, but Teacher Way's comment that we are all vibration. And I wonder if Gary, you just mentioned from form to formless, if the vibration shifts, because the vibrations go through this merging and transforming and expansion and contraction. So the vibration would be present in the death process. And I just wonder how vibration ties into the seeds. And Megan mentioned the ripples, which are vibrations, and we leave our energetic vibrations in the world, like she mentioned, everywhere. So our vibration moves through, continuing to merge and transform with the wholeness, with the duality that creates the wholeness. Yes.
Yeah, the words that were coming in as you were all sharing and sending your word vibrations back and forth were we become the music of the spheres, and vibration is that concentric circle that emanates out that we've been talking about. It continues forever. I mean, maybe it's like when you listen to a symphony orchestra, all of the vibrations start to work together to harmonize. And so there may be harmonizations out there that we become. And maybe at some point we go back into form out of the music of the spheres. And we each carry in us our own fundamental sound. And so that sound never ends. It's always present in the universe in some way, in some shape or way. And I haven't really thought much about this, so it's just, what's sort of coming through at the moment. But this is just what I needed tonight. I've been in a little bit of a downward spiral of vibration, and this is really lifting me out of it, and it's giving me something very beautiful to contemplate. So I really want to thank you for this very deep subject tonight, and your the wisdom that's created this time together on this particular wave of sound.
I also keep on seeing this image of, you can plant a seed, plant an acorn, right? And that literal tree keeps on growing, even when we're no longer in physical form, right? You think about all the trees that people have planted who are no longer in body, and those trees keep on going. I don't know why that particular image seems really strong right now. Probably thanks to Craig talking about saving all those those baby trees and having them growing in all of his friends' yards, and how those forests will be growing long after all of us are gone. So, yeah.
And Lillian's tree holding that too, to continue from the baby trees to the grown trees, that grown tree witnessing lineage back generation after generation after generation. So that memory of the trees, the baby trees to the mature trees. Thanks. Mm-hmm. That witnessing through time and space.
Yeah, I think about some of the trees where I live, and the oak trees, they're hundreds of years old, and you notice there's many of them that were around bearing witness before, Europeans were managing the land where I live, we'll just say. So just imagine, right? Just imagine.
Even the ripples in the tree bark brings that imagery of transformation and vibration, and that circular aspect of the trunk, that wholeness, like these tiny vibrations, these movements, these striations merging together in this circular wholeness that branches to the heaven and deep into the earth. I mean, it captures all of it just in its form on this planet. Definitely be sitting with this, Shayna. Mm. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I I have to say I can spin off a lot when it comes to emptiness and form, so it's kind of fun.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And even that emptiness holding all of the form, Alex mentioned it being a pregnant time, and I know Megan has used the phrase the pregnant void. Um, and there's this everything in that emptiness, in that wholeness, that return to oneness. All of the duality can burst forth, just like we see all of the information bursting forth from the seed. So yeah, the seed still holds with that that wholeness, that emptiness as a pregnant void. Yeah.
And when you said that, Elizabeth, what I thought of is the Tao is the seed,
Mm-hmm.
is the seed that everything is replicating unless we obstruct it with our distorted reference framework, and then it's not able to follow the Tao.
Yeah. It does feel like a time where like a lot of reference frameworks are breaking down and we're being faced with kind of in a way a blank slate. And that's why I think it's such a pregnant time and that there's so much possibility for us to pick up some of these old threads again and explore new directions. And maybe invite some of those things that we kind of like pushed and excised out of our consciousness collectively and let that come back into the fold and be like, well, maybe he was onto something there. I don't know, like maybe there's some other ideas we can explore here. It's like it seems like it's like all these multiple different crises, but I think they're all connected. Like, we're leaving a sort of unipolar world and moving to more of a multipolar world. We've got just kind of just the breakdown of like the breakdown of sense of meaning, conventional politics, old, the various institutions and stuff that we used to trust and trust much less now than we used to. But that seems like it's all in a way purposeful. Like it's like collapsing to a void, and there'll be this rebirth or expansion. And actually, it's like a really exciting time to be alive in a lot of ways, even though it's also a little bit scary. Like, but yeah.
It reminds me of Suan. This was some time back, but you mentioned the disharmony in the music and having space for, because you also mentioned harmonizing this evening, but space for the disharmony as well as the harmony. And the music of the spheres, I'm imagining, contains harmonizing as well as non-harmonizing, or that disharmony, or that fracture, that rupture where the little baby plant bursts through the tough, dry, protective shell. And like Megan said, we have this place of safety, but at some point to connect with the world of duality and to really let loose our vitality, we have to be disharmonious and crack and open and sort of make a loud show of it to connect to the nutrients, to connect to the sun, to connect to the dew that was mentioned in the poem, to connect to the earth. Like we have to break, we have to do something disharmonious. Like that's just as much a part of all of this as the harmony, it feels like in the seedling process too.
Yeah, I can't remember. We came across that term dissensus. It's like
Yeah,
it's
instead
like
of consent, yeah.
instead of consensus, it's like dissensus. But it's like yeah. I wish I could remember exactly what the context was there, but it was a really cool term. I was like, oh, I never heard that before. Dissensus. I love it.
Yeah, the song The Rite of Spring is that cacophony that
Mm,
Swan shared with us this year. Yeah, it shows
right.
that.
Yeah. Yes, the cacophony. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of love embracing that, especially as we hold what is our wholeness seed, our return upon death. How does this harmonizing, disharmonizing, these loud moments, this cacophony of, breaking. How do these vibrations, how do these ripples, how do we hold all of these? Because it's part of the opening, expanding, and contracting. Part of that contraction is not always comfortable, or the expansion, any of it. Yeah.
I had one of my greatest teachers, David Darling, used to say, all the sounds in the universe can be with any other sound. In other words, there are no sounds that do not work together. They all can merge together, no matter whether they're dissonant or harmonious. And when you think about microtonal music, it's like it's infinite how far you can go into a vibration in terms of the fineness of it. And we think about the fineness of vibration that teacher, the fineness of the Hunyuan Qi, and that's the finest vibration of information. I'm not making sense, but it's okay.
I love it. I love that everything in the universe goes together. Harmonies, disharmonies, all of it. That's a beautiful.
Every sound works with it, works with every other sound. And that's a perspective where dissonance and harmony, there's no difference. Anyhow.
Yes.
That's beautiful. It really helps connect to the observer and observing everything that's present with that same gaze. It just ties into the oneness. It's that duality held within this loving embrace of the oneness, harmony, disharmony. It's all held in that unconditionally loving gaze as it is, just its vibration. It's the movement held in the one. It's just, yeah. Thank you, Simone.
Thank you for being able to put it all together and in this coherence of words.
I feel like these sharings are the meditation. We've been opening and closing and vibrating and harmonizing and disharmonizing and holding all of it. Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe we've already had the whole hour.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
It's the
crazy.
tip of the hour.
Oh no, that was amazing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. My heart feels so full. Yeah.
I just want to say something that came up at the end there that I find a comfort. It is, this phrase came, your disharmony is welcome here.
You talked of the Tao, and the Tao contains it all, really, right?
Yeah.
It is all of it together.
Mm-hmm.
Everything belongs, right? Yeah.
Disharmony is welcome here, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
That's a good one.
Your disharmony is welcome here. The Tao contains all of it. Everything belongs.
Yeah. Like the dissensus, as I recall, is like it's like an invitation to that same idea. Like
it's dispersed and then come together.
Yes, disperse and come together.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need to drive at this like idea of consensus reality. I think that's part of what we're leaving is, that there's only one way to see the world, to experience the world. You don't need to, browbeat anybody or convince them of your viewpoint, but you come together, you share your viewpoints, and then you retreat to your own spheres of reality or whatever, and then you come back together again, and there's some mixing and mingling, and some vibrations might inspire or influence another sphere, or might not, it may not hold, but it's just interesting that there's like this, yeah, being comfortable with the dissensus.
And
And
even just embracing it, and like Suan said, no difference. Harmonized sound, disharmonized sound, consensus, dissensus, it all belongs. It's all welcome. And we can express, we can be present with what is, and relax into it, and allow these natural open and closes, these expansions and contractions, merges and transformations. Yeah.
yeah,
It's the practice.
yeah, beautiful. Well, how do we proceed? Do you want to like do a little short thing, or should we just call what we all of our sharing? And then of course we had that beautiful open close practice led by Megan, which was awesome. It was just right
It
kind
was
of
perfect.
it was great.
Yeah.
It was so good.
I feel the little seed, the potent concentrated seed that Megan brought us to. And I feel we've been nurturing that little seed with all of our sharing. And we will continue to. So I feel this invitation to continue on the meditation that Megan shared as our days go on and we sit with these ideas, these big ideas, these ripples, these vibrations. And we've placed that little seed in our lower dantian. So we can take our hands again and just stack them over the navel and take a few deep breaths, feeling the precious little seed embodied and shared here in our collective consciousness field. And we can give our gratitude for this time together, for holding space for all of these vital seeds and trusting their right timing, whether it's a slow germination or a fast germination, whatever the seedlings need to merge and transform in the environment. And honoring whatever arises, our questions, our wonderings, our heart's desires, and trusting. And seeing what's born, what unfolds. And we give our deep gratitude for our baby hearts, all of our baby hearts here together, expanding out into our communities, into all communities, connecting with our teachers, healers, wisdom traditions, all of it. And setting the gentle intention for integration and opening and closing. And slowly releasing the hands, gently moving the body, feeling all of the sharing, the vibrations sinking into our cells and our tissues, being fully connected in this loving gaze as much as feels good. And knowing that we can continue to rest in this space of the seedling, the safe space, the space where we bust out whatever we need to rest in, just allowing it to flow through us. And if it feels good, we can open our eyes and connect with our baby hearts here. Thank you, everyone.
Happy early Earth Day. Earth Day is tomorrow. And just reminding everyone that there's no battle between humans and nature, because humans are nature. So enjoy your wild nature. Hala.
Allah.
Allah, Allah.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the sharing. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen and Gary.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, of course.
This it just hit me at the very, very end. We all start out as a seed.
Mm-hmm.
We sure do. Yeah. Yeah.
And we blossom and grow.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
And we differentiate and
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, we do. And we root and rise within our environment, merging and transforming,
Yeah.
allowing our spiral, our infinite DNA to do what it's going to do in the world together. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Allah. We're all those little plants expanding and contracting, expressing our seed information. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm.
See you all next week.
Yes, we'll be back next week.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Go
Today's
hug a tree.
it's also my sister's birthday. So
Oh.
I always associate it with Earth Day also, but yes, today is her birthday. So happy birthday to my sister. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Good night.
Alex.
Yeah.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.